The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is facing criticism over the lack of diversity in its Oscar nominations again.
This year, there's a dark cloud hanging over Hollywood's brightest night, with many expressing outrage over a lack of diversity among the nominees.
Many feel that this year's nods are a disappointing step backwards.
You look at the acting nominees, you have 19 nominees that are basically white and one person of color. So there's been a lot of talk about this organization, this place, these awards not doing enough to represent the industry and the way the audience looks that come to see these films.
And no female filmmakers are up for Best Director. That lack of diversity in major categories could be mentioned on stage Sunday by the winners or presenters.
Some of the biggest categories lack even a single nominee of color, raising questions not just about the diversity of the award show, but of the entire industry.
That is the narrative of this year's awards, is that exclusion and lack of diversity.
The 20 lead and supporting actor nominees, all white. Only the second time that's happened in almost 20 years.
This year does feel like a return in a lot of ways to a kind of white male nostalgia.
Criticism over the lack of diversity lit up social media Monday, many reusing the phrase Oscars so white, which attorney April Rain created back in 2015.
Overall, it's clear that there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
Barnes & Noble, the bookstore, they are canceling their plans to add diversity to some of their classic book covers.
They plan to sell classic novels like Romeo and Juliet with reimagined artwork showing black characters on the covers. Critics slammed it as an inadequate attempt at inclusion and suggested Barnes & Noble publish original stories by writers of color instead. Barnes & Noble defending the initiative, saying it never intended to diminish the work of black authors.
The Wizard of Oz cover featured Dorothy as an African-American girl, while Juliet was featured in a headscarf. The program sparked a social media backlash from critics who pointed out, well, the characters inside the books were still white. Some suggested Barnes & Noble instead promote books written by black authors with black characters.
Now, the idea was slammed online by people who pointed out the characters inside the books, though, apparently are still white. One person referred to it as literary blackface, unquote. Another tweeted, just promote diverse authors in your stores, unquote.
The Diverse Editions program sparked social media backlash from critics. The effort was part of a Black History Month partnership with Penguin Random House. Barnes & Noble apologized on Twitter, saying the new covers were, quote, not a substitute for black voices or writers of color whose work and voices deserve to be heard.
And Penguin Random House, which was apparently taking part in that program, says it's going to donate up to $10,000 to a foundation to work to discover and develop black authors.